Hi everyone, a very warm welcome to this live Q&A for the MSc in Gender History and the online distance learning MSc in Global Gender History. It's a real pleasure to be here. We've got a fantastic panel assembled to answer all of your questions. But we'll just begin with a round of introductions. So my name is Dr. Tanya Cheadle. I'm a lecturer in gender history here. I specialise in the late Victorian and Edwardian period, looking at sexual progressivism and occultism. And I also currently convene the two master's programmes in gender history. And just to give you a visual sense of who I am, I'm a white woman in her late 40s. I'm wearing my hair tied back today. I've got a white blouse and a black jumpsuit on. So next up, I have Sarah, over to you.
Hi, thank you for joining us. I'm Dr. Sarah Cockram, and I'm a lecturer in medieval history, specialising in late medieval and Renaissance periods, and in gender history and historical animal studies. I use the pronouns she, her, and I have brown hair and glasses, and I'm in front of a lovely background showing the Gilbert Scott building of the university.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Next up, we have Amanda.
Hi, my name is Amanda. I have my hair pulled back in a bun. I'm wearing a black t-shirt. And I'm a student currently at the University of Glasgow in the MSc of Gender History.
Thank you, Amanda. And finally, Hannah.
Hi there. Yep, I'm in my second year of a part-time history PhD here at Glasgow, and before that I did the Gender History MSc course. My pronouns are she, her, and to give you a visual description, I'm a white woman in my late 20s. I've got long hair and I'm wearing a red and white pant top.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, everyone. Well, we're very much looking forward to answering whatever questions you have for us, and that's really the purpose of today's events is really to address any queries or questions that you have about the two programs. But I thought it might be helpful for us just to start with an overview of our offerings of the two programs in gender history that we teach here at Glasgow. So as I said, we teach two programs. One is an in-person master's program, the MSc in Gender History. But we have very excitingly a new online distance learning program in Global Gender History as well, which launched last year. So we can also answer your questions about that. So firstly, I'm going to ask my colleague Sarah just to take us through the in-person program. Sarah, I think you're still mute there.
Sorry. So the in-person on-campus MSc in Gender History has a structure that allows you to get some very in-depth training as a compulsory core course for all the students, as well as options that you can build for yourselves. So you have a bespoke program that you work your way through. So I thought it might be useful if I just give you a sense of the courses that form a part of this program. And then later on, Tanya Cheadle will give you an idea of some of the options that you can build in. So the structure of the MSc in Gender History includes 3 core courses. And the first one is called Doing History. And this gives students the chance to learn about the skills of the historian and to think about the work of the profession of the historian. And one of the nice things about it is it brings together all of the on-campus students in gender history with the other students who are on other history programs, so the whole cohort of postgraduates. And that's really nice. So that's a big course with historical skills. Then we have 2 compulsory core courses that are just for our gender history MSc students, although other students sometimes join as well, which is nice. The first one is in semester 1, and that's called Gender, Politics and Power. And this course introduces students to key theoretical frameworks and approaches in gender history. And each seminar on the course focuses on a major theoretical theme and shows how it can be applied by historians. The course is taught by a team, so that's great because it allows students the chance to get to know lots of different staff members, lots of different specialists across the weeks. And it also gives a chance for students to really develop and get their teeth into their own research interests and start to think about the things that they most want to study with us at Glasgow. Then in semester 2, the core course is called Gender, Culture, Text. And this course introduces students to methods and skills. So the ways that you would approach different kinds of sources as a researcher. And again, it's taught by a team of specialists, allowing what we like to think of as a masterclass approach to how different sources can be used and putting methods in action. So themes that are relevant to our students, such as various feminist theories or women's writing, masculinities, sexualities, the body, these themes can all be explored through sources that might include a variety of written texts, so historical texts of different kinds, as well as contemporary written texts, oral history, visual sources, and objects, for instance. So again, you can see that students really get the chance to develop their own interests and to bounce ideas off the specialist team. Then students would typically take 3 other courses, maybe more, maybe less, depending on the different credits for the courses that you select, but typically 3. And each year we have a variety of courses that students can select as their options here that allow students to look really in detail at topics in gender history that are of most of interest to them. And these can range from the medieval period to modern history. There's a real selection there. And you'll hear some more about these optional courses later. And then the rest of your credits on this program are made up of the dissertation, which is really your chance to shine and to get your teeth into exactly what you've identified as your passion for research by the time that you're coming towards the close of the program.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Sarah. And now I'm just going to, again, briefly outline our new online distance learning Masters in Global Gender History. As I said, this was launched last year, and partly it was done so with the aim to reach a wider range and kind of students. So this can be taken both by students in the UK and internationally, but it's also available to those already in work or with caring responsibilities, because flexibility and accessibility is built in to the programme. So in terms of its overarching structure, it's sort of similar but different to the in-person masters, in that there are just 2 core courses, and then you have a choice of 4 optional courses. Your first core course is called Gender History Applied, and that's another sort of unique feature of this new programme, in that it has that applied focus. And very specifically in this core course, it's looking at recent initiatives to gender, queer and decolonise public history, broadly conceived. So we're looking at the very latest scholarship, but also the best practice, drawing on a wide range of expertise, both within and beyond Glasgow. So this really has been a course that uses that team-taught approach, but also from practitioners as well as academics. So that really signals, I guess, the intent of the programme as a whole to have that applied focus. And then in the second semester, you'll take Gender History Concepts, which is where we look at a variety of different concepts and theories that are used by gender historians. Sarah's already sort of outlined the scope of this. It's very similar in scope to gender politics and power. So we look at things like masculinity, sexualities, sort of trans histories, colonialism, a whole range, drawing on our expertise from our colleagues in the Centre for Gender History. We look at the theories that gender historians use, but crucially, we look at how they apply them, how they use these theories to write better, more incisive gender histories, essentially. And as with all of the courses here, it's very much about developing the tools, your sort of critical thinking and writing tools, so that you can apply them to topics that you have a passion for and an interest in. So they're the 2 core courses, and all of your sort of the skills that you'll be using in writing, in thinking, in presenting, in researching will be supported by online resources that develop you as a critical thinker and as a gender historian. So then you'll choose 4 optional modules, and I'll take you through what it looks like we'll be offering next year. And then, as with the in-person master's programme, your programme, the capstone, if you like, of your programme is a dissertation. And again, that's something that can be done from your desk, because in academia, as elsewhere, the number of online resources has really exploded over the last sort of 5 to 10 years. So it's now perfectly possible to write a really excellent dissertation from your desk at home. But there's also, of course, the option to visit your local archives as well. So that's the new online master's programs, and I can see that there are people joining us who are interested in that. So that's fantastic, and I can answer more questions on that. But I thought it also might be helpful just to take you through the range of optional modules that it looks like we'll be offering next year, but that's with the caveat that these things can shift and change up to the last minute. But it's really sort of to whet your appetite to see the types of things that you might be introduced to when you join us here in September. So it looks as if next year in semester 1 we'll be able to offer a new course delivered by a new colleague. So we're joined, we're very happily joined, have just recently been joined by a new lecturer in LGBTQ+ history, Dr. Sam Rutherford, and they will be teaching their new course on approaches to queer and trans history. So that will be available in semester 1. Also in semester 1, Professor Maud Bracker will be teaching her course on reproductive rights and justice, historical approaches. And Dr. Christine White will be teaching her course Reparations Now, which is an introduction to sort of the key historical events, theories around reparations and reparative justice. And then moving on to semester 2, we'll have, it looks like we'll have Dr. Alex Shepherd's course on gender, care and capitalism from 1700 to the present, looking at sort of critical and historical examination of care. We will have Dr. Katrina MacLeod's course, Making a Living, Gender and Society from 1750 to 1800. We'll also have Professor Lynn Abrams' course on personal testimony for historians, looking at theory, method and practice. Dr. Erin Jesse will be delivering a course on qualitative approaches to the study of political violence, and all of these courses are drawn from the researcher's own expertise. And then finally, we have Dr. Sarah Cochran's course on women and power in Renaissance Italy. So as I say, that looks like that at the moment, that's what the syllabus will entail for next year, but this does shift and change. But for offer holders, I will be, as we get closer towards your arrival date, I will be circulating that, and there'll be a general course handbook. You will be inundated with information from us, but it will include that as soon as I can. Okay, so that's our introduction to the 2 main programs, and hopefully that's been helpful. But all of the details for this, for the 2 programs, are on our website. I'm very pleased to see the excitement amongst some of the people joining us. That's exactly what we love. We can't wait to welcome you here in September. And it might be just worth mentioning as well, and I'll be sending out an email to offer holders about this shortly, that there are ways in which you can prepare. Now, this isn't compulsory, but there are two main resources that we can point you towards. The first one is that we've produced a free MOOC partnering with FutureLearn called A Global History of Sex and Gender. And that is a 4-week, as I say, completely free 4-week course, which has been written and designed by members of the Centre for Gender History, and that provides a really great introduction to some of the themes, the topics, and the methodologies that you will be encountering on the programme. So that's a great introductory course to do. As I say, not compulsory, but it certainly provides a sort of an engaging introduction. And the other resource that we have is a reading list, and I'll be sending that out, as I say, in an email shortly. So that's a range of different articles introducing different theoretical, thematic, and methodological approaches within gender history. So if you're looking to get started and sort of get stuck in a bit early and to become familiar with the discipline, then do check out some of those resources. Oh, and someone was inspired by the MOOC to apply. Well, that is fantastic to hear, because that was one of our key objectives in making the MOOC. So fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing that. So at the moment, I can't see any specific questions from those joining us. So perhaps whilst you're formulating your thoughts around that and thinking up any specific queries or questions that you have for us, we've got a number of topics that we can explore, that we know that students generally are quite interested in, and I know that particularly in past years anyway, what you're particularly interested in is hearing from our students. So we have Amanda here, who's one of our current students on the in-person MSc in Gender History, and then Hannah, who's doing a PhD here with us now at the Centre for Gender History, who was a student in a previous cohort. So I'm going to start by just asking them a couple of questions, but do come in with a question once you've had a chance to formulate your ideas. So perhaps to start, I've just gone through some of those optional courses. Amanda, you are just coming out of the taught aspect of the course and moving towards your dissertation. Can I ask you about the optional courses you took? Which ones did you take? What were they like? Can you give people joining us just a sense of the optional courses at Glasgow?
Yeah, so the 3 optional courses I took one on the American Way of War. I took one on issues and ideologies of modern Scotland, and then I took one taught by Professor Judel called Enchanting Modernity, which is about occultism and spiritualism and
esotericism. Yeah,
that's what I can think of the word, esotericism. And they were all super interesting. I wanted to take the course, The American Way of War, because I'm from the United States and I grew up there, and I was curious about an international perspective on American warfare and American politics. So that one was really amazing for me to take and be able to get kind of a more non-biased, I guess, opinion on like American politics, which I thought would be good for me as a historian. I also took Issues and Ideologies of Modern Scotland because I wanted to have a better understanding of the country I was moving to and where I was living, and kind of the perspective of the educational system which I was entering, and which I really enjoyed. I loved taking that class. And then I took Enchanting Modernity because I was just curious about alternative religions within the 19th century and just this period of enlightenment within religion. And I thought that would be a really interesting course to take, and would kind of enlighten me on just the religious movements within Britain in the 19th and 20th centuries.
Fantastic, Amanda. Thank you so much. And that's raised something which I should have mentioned, that if you're joining us for the in-person program, you can select not just from the gender history optional courses, but from the history courses more widely, and also from courses in other schools and colleges. So there is that flexibility there. Hannah, can I call on you for this question? Do you remember your optional courses, and can you tell us a bit about them?
Yes, I still do. So kind of test. They were good courses. It just stuck in the mind. Just picking up on your point, Tanya, about from other schools, I took a course called Transnational Constructions of Gender, which kind of, as the name suggests, looked at constructions of gender in different time periods, in different cultures and different forms of literature. And that was run by the School of Modern Languages and Cultures. And I was actually really glad that I took one kind of from outside of history to kind of get that different perspective and that kind of more literature and language focused perspective on some of my sources. I also did what's called a special topic with Tanya on women and gender in 19th century Scotland. So at that point, I kind of knew what I wanted to do in my PhD, and I had quite like a specific gap of knowledge that I kind of wanted to fill in. So I think that doing a special topic depends on like if there's a lecturer in that field who has the time and the capacity to work with you and you're happy to do self-directed study. But that was a good option for me of like, if you after doing something very specific, then that is kind of a way that you can do that. And I also took Seeking Refuge from Slavery, which was really, really interesting course, which kind of was on a topic that I hadn't really looked at before, which like I'd really encourage, like kind of branching out into the things, and really helpful about kind of like historical debates about how we kind of think about and reevaluate difficult topics.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Hannah. Yes, and it's good to raise that special topic, and you're exactly right. If there is something that you really wish to learn about that a course isn't on the books for, then it's a question of liaising with the postgraduate convener here and with perhaps an individual member of staff that you want to work with. And if it's possible, we will try to make that happen for you. So we do now have some questions coming through. One from Leah, I see here, asking about the MSc as a foundation for a PhD. And your question, Leah, is specifically about motherhood and modernity, but I think there is a general question there about the MSc as a preparation for doctoral study. So I would say that not all of the students who join us by any means have doctoral study in mind each year, but several do. We have here at Glasgow, we have the Centre for Gender History, which has a very thriving postgraduate community of which Hannah is a part. And so the MSc is very much provides a very thorough foundation and is seen by funders to provide a thorough foundation for doctoral study, and indeed it would be an MSc in gender history, or a cognate discipline would be a prerequisite for funders for doctoral study. When you join us here in September, you'll have a meeting with the convener of the programme, who will find out from you what your aims and ambitions are for the programme. And if indeed you are thinking about doctoral study, then there is a clear sort of timeline that we will need to work together with you on, specifically if you're seeking funding. How it works in Scotland is that the PhD funding comes from an organisation called SAGSA, who allocate the doctoral awards. So we work with you to develop a proposal that then goes through the University of Glasgow and onto SAGSA. And it's an exceptionally competitive process, but we have a good track record in working with students on those proposals. The deadlines are pretty horrible. Basically, you'll need to have a proposal fully formed by November. So it's really early in the academic year. And that's why some students, even if they are thinking of doctoral study, will just come and take the master's and see how they get on and undertake their dissertation and then apply in the following year. So there are a range of options, a range of different pathways. But absolutely, I would say, and I can speak from my own experience here, I did a master's here at Glasgow in history. The gender history master's was sadly not available then. But aside from the sort of the practical aspect of getting funding, for me, it provided that conceptual toolkit and methodological toolkit that enabled me then to go on and complete my PhD thesis successfully. And, you know, the master's program is really quite intensive. You'll be getting, you'll be becoming familiar with so many different concepts, approaches, topics, periods, and that's, you know, that's designed to be that way because it expands your sort of sphere of knowledge as an academic. And you know, it's intensive, it's rigorous, but at the end of it, you do have sort of the foundational skills, knowledge and experience that is required to then go on to do a very different kind, and Hannah could perhaps speak a little bit about this, a very different kind of project, of study and of pace at doctoral level. So that's the long answer to your question. The short answer is yes, absolutely. It provides a very important foundation for doctoral study. Hannah, perhaps could I pass over to you quickly on that and just articulate perhaps a little more about how what you see to be the relationship between the MSc in Gender History and your doctoral project?
Yeah, of course. First thing I would say is I liked University of Glasgow and the Centre for Gender History so much in the Masters that I decided to stay. So I hope that's a good endorsement. And definitely kind of, I specifically wanted to do the Masters, and it's sort of and it did provide this, exactly as Tammy says, that like very strong theoretical grounding and very strong grounding in working with different types of sources. And I ended up talking about that a lot in my funding applications and in my actual application for the PhD. I could pull out really strongly, like, I have experience of doing this, and this, all of which came from the Masters. It also helped me, kind of like I said before, like there might be particular points of content that you want to pick up in the optional courses where you want a particular grounding before you go into your PhD. Like, that is very much available, and the kind of the dissertation section like starts on a small scale, practicing all of those kind of skills of independent research. And I sort of did my dissertation in a related field to what my PhD ended up being in. So found that very, very helpful, and found the lecturers at Glasgow very helpful in like helping with references and with applications and things like that. So I have all my master's notes, and still during the PhD go back all the time to remember how different theories work, or to look at a particular kind of historian that I was interested in the masters. So hugely helpful.
Thanks so much, Hannah. And just a final point on this, Leah, you were asking specifically about a PhD in motherhood and maternity. We do have expertise in that, but I would recommend both for you and for anyone interested in both master's and doctoral study here, is to look at the staff lists for history at Glasgow and to see who we have here. We're a large history department. The Centre for Gender History it also has a range of differing expertise. And when you come here for the master's programme, you will meet all of the members of staff within the centre, get to know them, get to know their research expertise. But you can do some of that preparatory work now by finding out who's here. Now, you can always email me as well, and I will direct you towards people that I think it would be good for you to have a conversation with. So if you do have doctoral study in mind, but even if you're coming here for the masters, take a look at who we have here, see if their research expertise aligns with something that you're interested in. We will be encouraging you really early on in the masters to reach out to academics and build those relationships and connections. Specifically, by the second semester, we'll want you to have identified, or over the course of the second semester, we'll want you to have identified your dissertation supervisor, who you want to work with as you develop your dissertation project. And it might be the case then that whoever you work with for that dissertation might then go on to be your doctoral supervisor. So it's really about finding out who's here and then building those relationships and having those conversations. I would encourage you to, if you wish to start doing that process now. Do just email the relevant member of staff, or you can email myself and I will direct you towards them. Okay, so we have more questions coming in, so I better see what else you are interested in. Mashra, you're working on the gender pay gap. So would you let me know what would be the best course to learn the historical dynamics of that? Again, work and the gendered nature of work is a strong theme in many of the researchers' work within the centre. Immediately, I think of Katrina McLeod's Making a Living course, but I imagine that work will be a theme in several other of the courses that we offer. So that would be I imagine that will be taught in sort of the program as a whole. But again, if you'd like more specific information on that and on who's researching that specifically, then do just get in touch and I can direct you towards the right people. So Carla, you're joining us as a mature student, absolutely. You've raised specific concerns around support that might be in place. Again, I would encourage you just to email myself perhaps about that directly. You've already got 2 master's programs under your belt in art history and cultural history, which is fantastic. That might be a case where you might be looking to perhaps take courses in those disciplines and to develop the sort of the interdisciplinary nature of your approach, which we would wholeheartedly encourage. And I guess that's another point to make, is that many of our students come from disciplines other than history, and that's all to the good, because it really fosters that interdisciplinary, transdisciplinary conversation that runs throughout our courses. Mel, a general question. This is a really good question. How did our panel members find the step up from undergraduate to master's level study? This is one for you, I think, Amanda, initially, and then perhaps Hannah.
I feel like that is a really personal question as well, just because like everyone's experience in their undergrad is different. Everyone could access different resources or went to different universities, and every university will set you up differently for the master's. So I can only really talk about my own personal experience going from undergrad into master's. For me, the biggest difference going from undergraduate to master's was just how much of a personal experience it is. Like, with the way that the courses are set up, you get as much as you put into all of the courses, right? They're not going to hold your hand like you're in a master's student now, and so they expect you to put the effort in yourself, like to do all the readings before class, because how much effort you put into the course is how much you're going to get out of the course. Whereas like I felt like personally in my undergrad, I could just like go to class and not really like put a lot of effort in. Not that I did that, but like you could do that and still learn. Whereas this one, it really is, you're an academic now, like you're a grad student, and so it's very much how much effort you put into it. It's also a lot more time outside of class, like a lot more time with yourself doing all the readings and researching and asking questions, and then going to class and then asking those questions that you already found, rather than finding questions during the lecture and then asking in class. So
thank you, Amanda. Hannah, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, just a couple of things. So I took a break of 4 years between my undergrad and my master's, where I worked, then came back to this. So I'd just say, if anybody listening, like you're going to be coming at this having not come straight from your undergrad, that is like totally fine. I found it a reasonable adjustment, particularly that first term. I was like a little bit rusty and still getting up to speed, but you've got time to do that, and a very supportive environment in which to do that. In terms of like difference in the style of study, just a couple of things. The first, to make a very obvious point, a master's is only 1 year long if you're doing it full time. So it is quite intensive, which I think is a good thing. It means you can really immerse yourself, but just maybe is different to that kind of slightly slower pace at undergrad. And then my favourite thing about it compared to undergraduate was my undergraduate degree was in history, but it was very, very broad. I looked at like lots of different time periods and places. But my interest has always been in women's and gender history. So like the lovely thing about this master's is that you can really shape it and you can make it really very tailored to your interests, so that every course you're doing is something that you feel passionate about. So yeah, that's the lovely thing about master's study.
Thank you so much, Hannah. Okay, so I can't see necessarily any more questions. Let me just double check my feed here. Okay, fantastic. So I'm just going to then, here we go. We have a new question from Emily through, who asks, could you give me a sense of the timeline experience for the dissertation? Absolutely. So I will give perhaps, actually, I might ask Sarah, because I feel like I've been doing a lot of talking already today. So I might ask Sarah to answer this one.
Thank you. Thanks for all these questions. They've been really fascinating, and it's been lovely to look at some of the very short snippet type introductions to some of the interests that people might be bringing. So that would be really lovely. It's been really nice to get a sense of who's with us today and who might be joining us later. So that's lovely. So yeah, the dissertation is really, as Tanya said, it's the capstone of the programs, because it really allows you to get your teeth into your kind of absolute personal research project, and to write something that's an enormous achievement by the end of the program. We understand that it's before you start it, and before you come, it feels like an enormous undertaking, and you think, I don't know quite what I'm going to do, or how I'm going to write that many words. But it does turn out, that's 12 to 15,000 words. But that does turn out, of course, that it always is shorter than you think. And then we always have students saying, oh no, I've run out of words and I didn't manage to do all the things I had planned to do. And then sometimes, of course, going on to write those other words as a PhD or something else later. So it's really exciting. It's exciting for us to watch the process unfold and to have those initial conversations with a student who says, either I came here knowing that I wanted to write something on this, and I'm happy to be here with specialist staff who can really help me, or students who discover a love they didn't even know they had. And that's really lovely for us sometimes to see before our eyes a student saying, could I write a dissertation on this when I didn't know anything about it a few weeks ago? And of course they can, and do wonderful jobs. So it's really nice for us. We see the process from the beginning. In the first semester, students with a greater or lesser idea already of what they might like to work on, students getting to know different staff members, often through team talk courses, or through attending things like the seminars or reading groups of the Centre for Gender History, getting to know people, getting to know staff interests, and also getting to know their own interests, students who maybe pick up a piece of reading and realise, yeah, this is the thing that I want to do. So it's nice for us. And then towards the end of the first semester, we run some bespoke workshops where we can talk more about the dissertation process to make sure that everybody knows the expectations and timelines, and this gives us the students a chance to run initial ideas past us, and we can develop ideas. And then once we get into the second semester, we see those dissertation ideas becoming firmed up, so that by the time that we're towards the close of the second semester, students submit their dissertation proposal. And at that point, we are allocated supervisors across the team, and we can start to have those really in-depth conversations with the student. And the project might at that point be really pretty well developed, and we all know how it's possibly going to turn out looking, and the student knows what they're going to do as their action points over the summer to write it. Other times there's a lot more scoping out to be done, even at this kind of point of the year, or we might need to consider some more reading, different sources. The dissertation at this point usually looks too big. The student's bitten off a bit more than they can chew, but they're not quite sure where it's going to go yet. And that's all normal. Over the summer, we have at least 5 meetings between the supervisor and the students where the dissertation takes shape. It's a really exciting time, and we read a draft chapter usually, give some really good feedback on that. And then at the end of the summer, before the start of the new academic year, in comes the finished dissertation, and we get the chance to mark it. And it really is a great achievement when they come together, and it's a lovely thing for us to see, but also that sense for the student of building something of their own, of filling a scholarly gap that they've identified and that they've found a passion and they've done the research. So it's a great thing. It feels really strange to imagine before you start the program that you're going to be able to write that and that it's going to be something that you'll take great pride in. But it does always turn out that way. Is there anything I've forgotten to add?
I don't think so. That's great. Thank you, Sarah. Can I ask Amanda? So the stage that we're at now in the timeline is, as I say, the teaching has the taught modules have finished for the year, and students are just starting their dissertation research. Amanda, I know this, but no one else does. What is your dissertation topic, and how did you find it?
Yeah, so I really struggled to find a dissertation topic, actually, because I felt like I had a lot of ideas, but they were all so big, and I was really, really struggling to needle it down to something I could actually write a dissertation on. So I really struggled, and Professor Tito actually helped me find my dissertation topic. So if you're in my position and it's like semester 2 and you can't seem to find a dissertation topic that you could actually possibly do, your tutors and professors are wonderful, and they will help guide you into something that you can handle. So my dissertation topic, so I'm writing about a periodical called The Evergreen, which is popular in Scotland at the end of the 1800s, right at the turn of the century into the 1900s. And I'm writing about gender within this periodical, and basically the way that gender was used to reestablish and to recreate a Scottish identity at the turn of the century, and how gender was an important tool into the making of national identity, particularly in Scotland and particularly within this periodical. And I found it to be so fun to really get to just dive into this topic and to be able to research around it as well, and to read what's there. It's just been so fun, because usually when you do your courses, your essays are just 3,000 words long tops, right? So you don't really have a lot of space in which to explore this area of history. You really just have to be very specific. You just kind of focus on that because your essay length is so short. And so with the dissertation, it really allows you a lot more space to play and to get to explore. And it's been so fun. And I wouldn't be scared of the dissertation. It's very fun.
That's good to hear. Thank you so much, Amanda. Hannah, could you share your experiences of finding a dissertation topic and then undertaking it?
Yeah. So I looked at political identity in women's letters to the British Socialist Press in the early 20th century. So there's a bit of a periodical theme here. And I would just say, if you're working remotely, loads of periodicals are digitized, so it can be quite a good dissertation avenue. There's I think we mentioned before, the course doing history in the in-person masters. As part of that, there was a session all about thesis topics and how to choose a dissertation topic. Which was directly super helpful for me, because in that session I started to sort of brainstorm, and that's where the kind of kernel of the idea came from. And I was just thinking about the kind of sources that I like working with, are kind of personal writing, autobiographies, letters, things like that. I was thinking about the kind of period of time that I like, kind of turn of the century. And then we're starting to think about things it can often be hard to see working class women in the past writing in their own words and not sources through others. So I was just starting to think about these general themes that I was interested in, and then through the kind of process of doing history and conversations with the person who supervised me, that kind of slowly became kind of more apparent. But completely agree, it's probably the most fun part of the course, just getting to do something kind of totally specific to you. It's a lovely summer.
Brilliant. Thank you, Hannah. And I just wanted to pick up on a point that you made there about brainstorming with peers. And we've talked a lot already today about building relationships with the lecturers and the professors here. But actually, I think as fundamental are the relationships that you build with your peers. And our aim is that both the in-person students, but also the online students form a peer network that is, so you will become friends, but you also become really supportive and a great resource for ideas, for collaboration, for commiserations, perhaps, and I think, but it's specifically within the Gender History Masters program that network does formulate really quite early on, and so if you do come here, I think that will be part of your experience here. That peer networks that you build both within gender history, the Centre for Gender History, but also within the sort of wider history community here. Okay, we have another question from Kaisha. Could you please expand more on the collaborative work with Glasgow Women's Library? So for those who don't know the institution already, Glasgow Women's Library, it's a bit of a misnomer because it's not just a library, it's an archive and a museum and a real centre for activist and academic work around women's and gender history and lives here in Glasgow. We're incredibly lucky to have them on our doorstep. They hold a diverse archive, primarily, but by no means solely, based around sort of the late 20th century, around women's and gay liberation. They hold the UK lesbian archive. And so I guess one aspect of our relationship is that there is the potential to do your dissertation using their archives, and many of our students do so just because that archive is so rich. As active researchers within the centre, many of us do work with Glasgow Women's Library, but they are also integrated very specifically in our teaching in the course Gender History Applied, when one of their founders, Adele Patrick, delivers a fantastic lecture on feminist leadership, something that she is a particular area of expertise for her. And then we also use Glasgow Women's Library as a case study of best practice across a number of different sort of public history sites. And other members of their staff provide lectures for us as well within that course. So, as I say, very lucky to have them here in Glasgow. We would encourage you absolutely when you get here to go and see them. They have a really vibrant programme of events, but also there are ways that you can more substantially incorporate particularly their archival holdings within your dissertation project. So that's Glasgow Women's Library. Our next question, and I realise we only have 10 minutes left, so we should get through all the questions. Can the MSc be done part-time? Absolutely. It's how I did my master's in history, and how several students each year undertake the programme. And there are a variety of reasons why people do that. For me, it was to combine academic work with caring responsibilities. People also do it and undertake paid work alongside it. So yes, that's absolutely a very common pathway for students on our master's programme. Okay, So as I say, we've got 10 minutes left, so maybe time for one or two more questions. And I wanted to talk a bit more about the Centre for Gender History, or to explain a little bit more about that. Sarah, could I ask you to just provide an introduction to the Centre and how it figures in students on the Masters in Gender History?
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of the most exciting things about studying gender history at Glasgow is that you can take advantage of being part of this well-established and vibrant community that is the Centre for Gender History. Not only can you gain access in exciting ways to partner organisations like the Glasgow Women's Library that we've already discussed, but the Centre has a really active seminar series and an annual lecture, which this year also has a workshop, which is really exciting for postgraduate students. There are also postgraduate-led initiatives within the Centre, such as the Postgraduate Reading Group, which is a great place for community building and also intellectual exploration. And because it's postgraduate led, there's the chance to really direct the kinds of things that you want to do. So each year the activities look quite different depending on the interests of the cohort for each year. So it's fantastic. It's a really nice place to go, and it just gives another layer of support, another layer of access to like-minded people and to expertise.
Thanks so much, Sarah. So we're closing the chat in 5 minutes. So I thought it might be nice to end with the following question, and this is for Amanda and then Hannah. What would be your one piece of advice that you would give to prospective students coming to us on the MSc in Gender History?
Hannah, do you want to go first?
Yeah, no problem. I'll give you some thinking time. I think that I would say, take all of the opportunities that it gives you. Obviously there's the weekly classes and assessments and assignments and the reading, and that's all brilliant, and definitely take those opportunities. But then I think we've been talking about today, there's this whole world of research seminars, lectures, events, not just in gender history, not just in history, across the whole university. Glasgow Women's Library, great archival art history collections across Glasgow. So you can really use it as a year to get that really broad enrichment and help you to think more broadly about things. So take those wider opportunities. Going off that, I think the greatest thing that I would have appreciated to have the mindset going in is that there's so many amazing opportunities at the University of Glasgow. There's a wonderful archive. The Glasgow Women's Library is so close. There's tons of reading groups, and there's all of your peers. There's just so many opportunities, and everyone is so excited and willing to engage with you, and to everyone wants you to succeed, and that's the biggest takeaway. But you have to be willing to put in the work and go find it, and to reach out to people, and to go to the lectures, and go to reading group, and put the effort into building relationships with people, because if not, it's also very easy to sit alone in the library all day, right? So if you're really wanting to get the most out of this experience, you have to be willing to be proactive, and to look for those resources, and to reach out to people, and to go to things. So.
Excellent advice. Thank you both. So that's us for today. Thank you so much for joining us. If you do have specific queries about, for example, the admissions process, then do reach out to admissions. But if you have further questions about the nature or content of the two programs, or about perhaps particular members of staff that you want to work with, then do feel free to email me. Okay, so I'm here for you to answer those questions. But otherwise, thank you so much, firstly, to our wonderful panel today for all their hard work answering all of your fantastic questions. But thank thank you for joining us, and we very much look forward to meeting you in September.